Welcome to Behind the Scenes. I'm your host, Hector Montalvo. This show is dedicated to asking tough questions for you, the viewers. We bring you their responses, and we let you decide. Joining us here today at our MCTV studios, we have two candidates for Governor's Council. We have candidate for Governor's Council, Rich Mitchell, and alongside of him, we have Joe Ureneck. Welcome to the show, guys.
Thanks for having us.
Thanks, Hector.
Why the Governor's Council? I'll ask both of you guys the same question, but we'll start with you, Rich. Why the Governor's Council?
Well, the Governor's Council is responsible for approving judges that the governor wants to appoint in the state of Massachusetts. So all judges, probate, family court, trial court, appeals court, everything. And today, we have a major problem in the criminal justice system and the court system, where we're getting a lot of judges in that aren't good judges, that justice is not really being served effectively or well to the people of the Commonwealth. So.
And Joe, why the Governor's Council? We'll get back to that specific, but why the Governor's Council for you, sir?
Well, I second everything that Rich just said. There's a big problem in the courts right now, and for myself, I became involved in the Governor's Council because I saw how badly men and fathers are being treated in the courts. The problem starts, of course, with the legislature and the laws they pass, but in the courts, judges have a lot of discretion as to how they will implement the laws passed by the legislature. If they're going to enforce laws that are unjust and put men in prison and take children away from their parents, there's something wrong with that judge if he doesn't step back and say due process is not being served. So I started going to the Governor's Council a couple of years ago to monitor how they were approving these individuals who eventually would become a judge, and I was simply astounded at the lack of thorough vetting and investigation of the people who are becoming judges in the state. It really is a process that needs to be totally reformed.
How does someone become a judge in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, besides going to that particular Governor's Council?
So the process is you start with filling out a form. So if you want to become a judge, then you fill out a form, and there's a JNC, the Judicial Nominating Committee, that the governor puts into place. And then once you fill out the report, you're interviewed by a subsection of the JNC in your region. They go through your background, talk to you, and then nominate you or not to the greater membership of the Judicial Nominating Committee. And then they'll take a vote on you and either recommend you to the governor or not.
Who's made up of this committee? Is it the people, the public, or?
No, not at all. If I may jump in here, the JNC was first formed by executive order by Michael Dukakis in 1976. At that time, he had a pretty good executive order. It was only 2 pages. Now it runs after succeeding governors have changed and revised it. It's up to perhaps 25 pages. But Mike Dukakis did a very good thing when he instituted the Judicial Nominating Committee. He limited the number of lawyers on the then 11-member body to less than half. So a minority of the JNC could only be lawyers, but the majority had to be regular citizens. Now it's all lawyers, 100% lawyers, and it's 21 to 23 individuals who are on the JNC. And so it's part of the problem where the courts in general and the nominating process in particular is controlled by the legal industry. And the general public has no say whatsoever in how the people who are going to be on the courts in the state of Massachusetts.
Now, when you say legal industry, most people will take that to be lawyers. Basically, that's the industry that's controlling these committees?
Yes, it's all lawyers. So yeah, completely all lawyers. Yeah, bar associations and the lawyers that make up the bar associations. When I first started going to the Governor's Council meeting as an observer monitor a couple of years ago, it was quite apparent to me that the only people who were at the hearings and who were in fact welcome in an unofficial sort of way at a public hearing were members of the bar, other judges, and people connected in that way to the legal industry. The general public did not, by and large, go to these meetings. Since then, I think that the efforts by the Fatherhood Coalition and people like Rich in his efforts have encouraged more of the general public to attend the meetings. But the problem is the process is still secretive. In other words, people who are becoming judges fill out an application, as Rich mentioned, but none of that information is available until after the vote is taken. So we can't really examine these people, their backgrounds, and what they may or may not do as a judge until they're already confirmed. Once they're confirmed, they're on there for life. So the whole process needs serious revision.
So with both of you running for for governor's council, what plans do you have to change or reform the way it's operating now?
Well, to start, we really need people that, we're going to ask more detailed questions. We're going to delve deeper into making sure that there is not only no conflicts or interest or bias in lawyers coming up to be judges, perceived or real. So right now it's really an old boy network. All of the lawyers that are out there. Well, just for example, a couple weeks ago we were at a hearing, a contentious hearing for a person named David Aptaker, who was coming up before the Governor's Council, and he had misrepresented and not listed a couple donations he made to disgraced political candidates. He brought in 50 members of the legal community to support him and testify him. When you really look at that, all of those lawyers, if he becomes a judge, are eventually going to appear before him. So it's an inherent conflict of interest that each one of those people have, because if they don't stand up and support him, right, or they're not on a list, he had a list of 50 or 60 people, then what's going to happen when they go to court before the judge, right? So none of those people really, should even be testifying. So, neither Joe nor I are lawyers. We both, when we signed, got on the ballot for Governor's Council, we had to get 1,000 certified signatures, and we each got about 1,500, and we probably talked to 3,000 or 4,000 people. And since then, we've been talking to different groups. And by and large, people will ask, "Well, you're not a lawyer," But what we need more non-lawyers on there, people that have common sense, that really can see, and use common sense, right, to see what's going to happen with these people and to protect, the citizens of the Commonwealth. There is so much in the judicial system that needs to be changed.
It's kind of interesting that you mentioned that the judiciary system is made up of lawyers and judges are the ones nominating these individuals. We were able to follow that particular hearing that you were discussing, Aptaker. And we couldn't help to notice, and I don't know if you guys noticed, that there was a Chief Justice of the court, I believe it was Chief Justice Paula Carey, who was speaking in favor of that nominee. Is that a clear conflict of interest where this Chief Justice is advocating for this particular guy? He did withdraw his nomination. Can you tell us a little bit about that whole situation? Is it a conflict of interest to have a Chief Justice of the court at a Governor's Council meeting advocating for a particular person?
Well, I think it would certainly be much better if someone like the Chief Justice did not go to these hearings. That wasn't the first hearing that she's attended in support of candidates. In that particular candidate, his recommendations all came from judges. He had 10 judges recommending him. And the fact that you have 10 judges recommending somebody and you have the Chief Justice of the court there, it shows how, in a way, hermetically sealed this whole business is of reviewing and approving people for the judgeships. There is a sense, I think, among the lawyers in the Bar Association, which is this process is entirely one that's in the legal field, and the common citizen should not have any say whatsoever in what's going on there. I think it can't stay that way. It's impossible, because what's happening in the courts, there's injustice going on. The amount of the system is broken. No matter how much they try to keep the machinery running, which is what I think they try to do in the Governor's Council up to this point, it's not going to continue along the way that it is. The problem with, again, getting back to your question, Chief Justice Carey attending those meetings, she's attending those meetings and she's getting paid to attend them as part of her job as Chief Justice. Some might question, why is she getting paid to attend a hearing in support of somebody who's going for a judgeship? So in that way, there's a conflict or a problem there.
And Chief Justice is paid by taxpayers' dollars, correct?
Well, yeah, all the courts come from the taxpayer
so basically,
dollars,
yeah,
right?
there is a conflict. I would tend to believe that there is a conflict of interest.
Right. But if I may, Hector, if I just may point out, Rich is here and he's running in District 2. which is Natick, Framingham, down towards the Attleboro area. And I'm running in District 1, which is all of southeastern Massachusetts and the Cape and the Islands. And there's a third candidate, Mike Franco, who's running in District 8, which is western Massachusetts. Now, the three of us are running because we felt very strongly that, again, the way that families, in particular men and fathers, are being treated in the courts is completely wrong. And the machinery is just chugging along as if there's no problem, as if there are blinders on, living in a twilight zone. There needs to be real change. And those are the three candidates that we hope people will support in the election.
As part of Governor's Council, what type of control do you have to make sure that judges are well qualified to serve on the bench? What steps would you take to ensure that those process and the peoples that are paying these particular people are protected, to make sure that they are going to get a judge that's going to protect due process, the rights to be equal, civil rights violations?
Well, I think one of the things is just to delve into the background a little bit more and look more at the types of, well, in one way is to look at the types of clients that the lawyer bring on. If they only bring on men, or if they only bring on women, or if they only represent certain subsections of the community while they're practicing as a lawyer, does that then give you a good feeling about that they will be unbiased when they are a judge and they have complete control and authority over the people in that courtroom? Right? I don't think it does. And I do not think that they are looking at that one specific issue. I think is a very, very big issue. Right? Once you're a judge, you're sitting on that bench, you have complete control over what happens to the people that are in your courtroom. You can, and there are some good judges out there, but there also are a lot of bad judges out there. And there are judges that do not follow the law. And there is no consequence. They have judicial immunity. They can do anything they want on the bench and pretty much get away with it, right?
So judges do have immunity in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts? They do.
Yes, yeah.
Right.
If I might just add something to what Rich just said, which is I think even if someone is a capable person, very well intentioned, and has all the right skills to be a judge when he or she is first appointed, the problem is they're there for life. As a counselor, I would ask the nominees who are appearing and applying to be judges to voluntarily commit to have a term limit on their time as a judge. We can't do it officially because there's a constitutional acceptance of life tenure for judges. But I think that any person, no matter what job you do in life, it gets tiring. It wears on people, and to have, particularly in probate court, where you have a conveyor belt of misery going before you every day, you just know that the people who are sitting as a judge in those situations are not going to be looking at the individuals with fresh eyes day after day. And so I think there should be a limit on the time people spend. It would be a voluntary thing. They wouldn't be required, but I think if they committed to do that and they didn't, they would be known as not being very trustworthy.
Is there due process and civil, the rights to be equal and protected under the law? Do you see that in the court systems? I know you guys are involved in court watching and so on. How are these judges educated? Are they educated through any process?
Well, there is some minimum level of process that the judges go through. I'm not up to speed on exactly what that is. But I can tell you that there is this due process does not always happen in the courts. Basically, there's really a confederacy or that goes on. Now, you have to remember that judges were lawyers, and there is a brotherhood or sisterhood. Actually, I think there are maybe more women judges nowadays. And so, from my point of view, there's control that we have on nominating new judges. I would also like, if I get elected, to use that as a bully pulpit to make, hopefully, other changes in the court system, one of which is term limits. I fully support term limits. That would be a major process. It would take a long time to get through. But I think term limits of 6 or 7 years is more than enough time for anyone to be a judge. And I agree with Joe, especially the burnout that happens. And when you have complete authority and complete power, and absolute power corrupts, absolutely. After a period of time, you just have to be less effective. And some of the judges get absolutely despotic in the courtroom. And if you sneeze the wrong way, you can get contempt of court, you can get thrown out, you can get put in jail. So That, along with, I mean, some very basic things, where when you go to court, everyone shows up at 9 o'clock. Okay, and people are paying lawyers $200, $300, $400, and the majority of people are there for till 11, 12, 1 o'clock in the afternoon. So you're paying 3 or 4 hours of time at $300 an hour or $200 an hour, and you're in front of the judge for 5 minutes. Now that seems like a very straight. Well, that's easy to fix, right? Just some people show up at 9, some show up at 10. There'll be overlap, but what will that do? That will reduce the amount of money that the lawyers make. Do the judges want to do that? Because all of their friends are lawyers, right? So if they actually made that very common sense change, then all of those lawyers would lose a lot of money.
Well, I can tell you, we've looked into the judges coming on at 9 o'clock. I don't know what court area you've been watching, but the courts that we've been watching, and there's a particular famous judge that I can tell you, her name is Mary Manzi, practices out of the Lawrence District Court. This is a judge that's never on the bench at 9 o'clock. I mean, we're talking about 9:45, 10 o'clock, and it's very interesting that these judges don't come out at exactly 9 o'clock while these parties are actually paying their attorneys. So what changes can the governor council make to try to change those type
Well,
of...
you know, the unfortunate fact is, as it stands now, once a person is approved as a judge, you can there's almost nothing, absolutely nothing you can do to change the behavior. I mean, you're doing some good things in, I believe it's Lawrence District Court, bringing attention to these judges, but it's not a system-wide change. And I think that the Governor's Council and thorough vetting of people is really the best opportunity we have, excuse me, to prevent some of these problems. If a nominee is going to be applying for a job, and they're vetted not only by the council, but by the public at large, because their information is out there completely, and people can look at it, and other people can investigate their behavior or their history as well, you're going to have a lot of people who are going to be screened out. Right now, if you're part of the establishment, the legal industry, there's really very little to weed you out. But once the public has more of a say in the process, I think we'll see a lot better, a higher caliber of people going into the judgeships. The other thing I might say is, as a point of information, it's not required that judges, by the Constitution, it's not required that judges be lawyers. It is required under Governor Romney's JNC executive order. And that's something that could be done away with a stroke of a pen, but judges don't have to be lawyers. And in fact, going back not too many years ago, I believe in the 60s and 70s, there were part-time judges and weekend judges, and people were not, in the past, they didn't have to be members of the bar to be a judge. And by the Constitution, they still don't.
Now, you both have opponents running up against each other? And you guys have a primary as well?
I have a primary in District 1, which I said is Southeast Massachusetts. That's September 14th. I'm running as a Republican, so if anyone's an independent or a Republican and they're in the southeastern part of the state or the Cape and the Islands, I would ask them to cast a vote for me on the September 14th primary.
Why Joe versus your opponent?
Well, as I said, I've been monitoring the council for quite some time. I actually think my Republican opponent has some very good ideas on some of the social issues that he's brought up. But I don't know if he's as good as I am, or I would tend to think not, in terms of the mechanics on how best to change the council. As I said, we have to make it a lot more public, a lot more transparent, and we have to make the council accountable to the public in the entire process. I would also argue that the JNC has to be changed dramatically as well. It should not be all lawyers. And it's coming out, the importance of this can't be underestimated, because right now we have the resignation of Chief Justice Marshall. Whether you like what she did or did not like, and I don't think she was very good for the Commonwealth, the point is the Governor's Council and the people that sit there will either approve someone like Justice Marshall again, or they'll reject that person again. And if Justice Marshall was coming up again, I would vote against her position as a Chief Justice in the courts.
It's interesting because she did stated that she would be resigning, and she used the excuse that her husband had some type of disease or Parkinson's disease. It came out that it was her husband had that 10 years ago, So why do you think anything, you don't have to answer this, but do you think anything other than that particular issue is the exact reason why she is stepping down?
I have no idea.
You don't have.
Yeah, I don't have any idea about
Now,
that.
Rich, let me just ask you, why you over your opponent?
Well, first, I'm running as an independent, okay, in District 2, which goes from Hopkinton east to Hyde Park, so just a little bit of Boston, and then down to Seekonk, Rehoboth. So it's a really, they're all very, very large districts, 750,000 people. I'm running as an independent. I'm the only independent in my district, so I don't have a primary. There will be a primary, a Democratic primary, between the current person, Kelly Timilty, who is probably the worst governor's counselor that we have. She very rarely even makes comments, when interviewing candidates. She was brought up on ethics violations because she forged Deval Patrick's signature 2 years ago when she was running. So she had a hotly contested election with this guy, Jubenville, who spent $100,000. So my competitors, we'll see what happens with the Democrats, but taking Kelly Timilty aside, who hopefully will not even have a chance to get back in, the other two are lawyers. I've met Robert Jubenville, and I haven't met Glovsky, who's a Republican, but they haven't said anything about changing or reforming, right? When you talk to most lawyers, not all, when I was out collecting signatures, there were, a bunch of lawyers I talked to that said they do need a change. But the majority of them are very happy with the status quo because it fattens their pockets, right? Whether they're in probate court, family court, or, district court, they are there to get along and go along, right? So if we elect either one of those two people, you're just electing another lawyer who's on the inside who doesn't see what happens. Now, the benefit of us not being lawyers, okay, we've all been through, the court system. I've been through, starting with probate and family court. I'd never been into court, Massachusetts at all before I, was served with divorce. And then it just, rumbles on after there. You court in and out all the time. Been in district court a lot, and you just see what happens to you as well as what happens to all the other people around you. So there's a lot of reform that needs to happen. There's things that people don't even recognize until you get in there and you talk with people that are being abused effectively.
Well, speaking of abuse, the state of Massachusetts issues out the court system itself, anywhere between 20 to 50,000 restraining orders in a year. Is there anything that the governor's council can do to ensure that these restraining orders are not being abused moving forward in the processing of electing judges?
Yeah, there's one thing we can do, which we tried to do with David Aptaker, which was to at least make sure they understand what the grounds for a restraining order are, which is reasonable fear of imminent physical harm. So day in and day out, if you sit through district court, you will see that people go up, and there are obviously abuse cases, right, that definitely deserve restraining orders, right? But there are also cases of he said, she said, and he yelled at me, and they have to uphold the law. And too many judges today do not uphold the law. They do whatever they want to do.
Joe, what do you see?
Well, I would say again, the only opportunity we have is in the governor's council to vet candidates to make sure they understand. From my point of view, the underlying premise is that the law is intrinsically flawed and unconstitutional, and that if it's going to be implemented at all, it should be implemented with great caution. But yesterday, for example, there was a hearing for a couple of candidates, and from what I saw, they had no understanding of the tremendous damage that the restraining orders are causing to the citizens of the state. So if I was on the council, I would be voting against many candidates who are getting approved now.
And these were attorneys that were?
Oh yes, they were attorneys who had gone through the process and were before the governor's council in the final stage of the nomination hearing. And I in the last few weeks, there's been a number of nominations, and I can't think of any one of them who I would feel comfortable with as a judge regarding the restraining order problem that we have.
If someone wanted to donate to your campaign or help you hold signs, or what do they need to do? Where do they go to find you?
Well, if you want to donate, you go to voterichmitchell.com, and there's a button up on the top where you can click donate. It goes to PayPal, and then you can donate. You can donate up to $500, which is the limit, or you can donate $10. So whatever whatever you can give. And then if you want to contact me, my cell phone is on there, which is 508-789-3222. My email address is up there. Contact me, call me, and I would appreciate any help that I can get.
Are you on Facebook?
I'm on
MySpace?
Facebook, and actually Facebook is probably the best place because with Facebook, it's just a lot more dynamic than a website, and we have a lot more discussions, posts, stuff. So if you go to Facebook and type in Rich Mitchell, Governor's Council, politician, then you should find me.
And Joe, if somebody wanted to reach you now, we understand that you are chairman of the Fatherhood Coalition that advocates for men and fathers in the court system. How can people reach you or that particular organization? And are you on Facebook as well?
Yes, pretty much the same process that Rich mentioned. My website is votejoeureneck.com, but I'm also on Facebook, so just type in Joe Ureneck and you can reach me by way of the Facebook. And I also have a cell phone, 857-350-0575, and you can reach me anytime by cell phone. So donations are very, very welcome, and of course any help on the campaign would be great as well. And as I said, September 14th is the drop dead date for my campaign, where I hope people will get out and vote in District 1, southeastern Massachusetts and the Cape and the Islands.
Great. Now, you're also a host of a show called The Father's Corner, is that correct?
Right, in Boston, the Boston Neighborhood Network program.
And people can see that show how?
That's on Tuesdays at 6 o'clock. It's a live call-in show, so it's really good for people who want to get on the air and express their opinion regarding the issues facing men and fathers. So it's every Tuesday, 6 o'clock. And if they go to that website, bnntv.org, they can watch it live, no matter where in the world they are.
Great, great. Well, listen, I wish you guys the best of luck on your campaign trail. It's an uphill battle. You guys are running to make a difference, to protect families, to ensure that the laws are being obeyed, and basically those that are sworn to uphold the laws are actually held accountable. And talking to you guys, it seems that that is not the case right now. But I want to wish you guys the best of luck on your campaign trail. You've been watching Behind the Scenes. I'm your host, Hector Montalvo. Watch us next time as we go behind the scenes to ask the tough questions, bring you their responses, and we let you decide. Thank you for watching.